Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto podcast, where we provide immersive, essential, and evergreen strategies for the novice cryptocurrency investor. How you doing? I am one half of your hosts, Broke Boi Crypto. We've got some interesting things to talk about tonight because that's right, Jerome Powell and the Fed did stick to their guns and what most of us did think they were going to do and went with the 75-point rate hike once again today. And we'll get into that and a couple of Jerome Powell's comments. But before that, I've got my co-host, of course, with me live on the air, streaming as well, Crypto Ewok. Ewok, the beard looking majestic as always. How you feeling tonight?
Doing okay. I was a little, I wouldn't say upset, but I thought it would be a little bit lower on the increase today. Predicted 50 points, but it was 75. You know, what are you going to do? I just don't know. These guys keep pushing it. What kind of catastrophic waterfall will come of it down the road? As we know, these things don't take effect overnight. The things that they're doing now take months to play out. And it's not looking good. There's a lot of things just that are kind of worrisome. You know, it's kind of scary when you sit back and you think about the possibility of what's to come, especially if they just keep going with it. The UN has already pleaded with them to slow it down a little bit because it's affecting everything globally. And they're not showing any signs of slowing down. So we'll have to see how this plays out.
Yeah, they are not. And that was an interesting thing is people were wondering if Powell would still mean business and would they go back on their word kind of. And I mean, nobody really thought, and I'll kind of just say this before we get into anything else, but we're recording this Wednesday night, November the 2nd. Bitcoin is just holding on over 20K right now. It's 20. I have 2156 right now. And Ethereum is just over 1500 at the moment. But yeah, it was interesting because really nobody thought that they would be super aggressive this time around as far as, the barometer that we've already set. Nobody really thought they would do something outrageous like 100 basis points or anything. But yeah, Ewok, you said just a couple of weeks ago that you were thinking they would start hedging their bets and go back to just 50. I saw a few other people saying that. There was probably a good 10 to 20%, I would say, of the market was expecting something less than 75. So the fact that we get it again, I said it last week, and I think you said the same, is we thought that we would start to get short-term bullish price action if it was anything 75 and under, of course, under. And we still may. I mean, we're only about 6 hours out or so from the announcement. But we did see an initial charge up right after the news. But this is just my guess. But I think that it sounded like Jerome Powell sounded even extra hawkish in his actual interview and press conference thereafter. So we've seen the market slightly dip since then. I mean, it's nothing outrageous. We're only about 500 or so down for BTC since that time. But we are seeing a dip on the day here. So what do you make of this? And do you think that do you think we still get short-term bullish price action maybe throughout the next couple of weeks in November? Or what do you think? Because the thesis that we've been laying out is that we really thought, we've been saying this all years, we thought November would kind of be the ending of this whole thing and maybe get the final biggest drop down this month, maybe after election season. Are you still kind of agreeing with that timeline, or what do you think after this news today?
Well, after today, I think it's more possible. November could be. This could trigger something that, it's got to shake out. We'll see how it plays, but, hopefully I'm ready for a bottom. I don't care how low it goes. I just want it to be over with. And I know a lot of people are sharing that same sentiment, let's get it over and done with so we can move on. But if they keep raising rates, how far is it going to go? And will that cascade down further and further? I don't think the next meeting is until January, right?
Correct. Yeah. I don't know the date on that, but yeah, you're right.
So who knows? Like, I don't know if this is enough to trigger the final, downturn for the markets so that we can end the bear market. I don't know. I hope so. Like I said, I just want it to be over with and move on, bigger and better things,
Yeah. And I'm fully in agreement with you, and I think a lot of us have felt that way, even if it was kind of a rip off the Band-Aid thing, kind of like what you're saying. Like whatever the rate hikes are that we need, go ahead and do them. Let's get this out of the way. Even if it's 11K and pray for BTC or whatever it is, let's just get it over with. But it's just been this crazy, weird, slothy, slow crawl from June until now, to where so many people, and I'm not saying they're wrong. I've been one of them, and I still agree with this opinion, but so many people since June have been saying, no, the lows aren't in, we're going lower and all this. And I do still agree with that. But, when you start to get nearly 6 months out from the June lows, it's only natural to kind of doubt that thesis a little bit. But I'm still of the belief, like you, Ewok, and it sounds like that's what you're saying here tonight, that I don't know that we've seen enough of the real world effects of these rate hikes yet. I just don't know that we have. And it's just making me wonder if it doesn't happen this month or even in December, you always have to change on the fly when it comes to crypto. But I mean, like maybe could we be seeing the lows pushed into 2023 at some point, just based on people's opportunity to react to this? And like you just said, unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, it looks like the FOMC meeting in January 2023 is the 31st of January and February 1st.
So that's a long ways off.
That is a long.
I mean, so there's a couple things that you got to think about. Bear markets traditionally have lasted roughly 364 or 5 days, which is the equivalent of a year, as we know. But this is the first time that a global recession has been taking place during a bear market. So, how will it play out? It's a good question, and how will it change the dynamics of the traditional 4-year cycle? We'll have to kind of wait and see. But like you said, though, I still see it going further. We haven't reached max pain yet. It feels like it. We talked about this a little bit earlier. The psychology of the market. We always try to anticipate where we're at in that cycle. I'll pull it up actually while we're talking about it here, because I think it's a good thing to share for people that may or may not have ever seen it. But it goes in certain stages. You have, it starts off with hope and optimism and belief, and then there's the thrill and euphoria as it goes up to the top, and then people it comes down a little bit, and people get complacent. Drops even further. You get anxiety, denial, panic. Capitulation is usually, somewhere near the bottom, and then people start to get angry, which we've seen that a lot.
We've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, you get people, and it's going to bring it out even more than normal. But you get the infighting even between a community that's usually so tight. The Hex community, for example, you started to see a lot of infighting and just angry responses to stuff. And then it goes on and on and on, and it goes into depression. And, you made a video on your channel earlier that I watched from today, talking about, the depression portion of it. And it's really hard for a lot of people to cope and move on and do their normal things and stay positive. With life itself, knowing that your whole portfolio is down a large chunk for most people that are play this game, and even with the traditional markets now, they're feeling it too, because their 401ks are down. Their savings accounts, or not savings accounts. Savings account pretty much flat, but they say, show me your closest 5 friends and I'll show you your future. It's one way to kind of reevaluate things, and look at who you're spending the majority of your time with. This can help a little bit by reevaluating your friend base, and try to spend some time with more successful people, more positive people. It will definitely make an impact on your life, on your outcomes. and then, we go back up to disbelief where things start to run back up. And that's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner or later. It's just a matter of sticking it out, no matter how hard it is, and sometimes how tough it is to go through those. There's always things, though, that you can be thankful for. And I know, you look around and a lot of people have it worse off than we do. Just because our portfolios are down doesn't mean you don't have something to be quite thankful for, and that you're in a lucky place. And it's not too late. We're here at the right time. It's still an early stage of the game, I feel, even though this is my second cycle.
Right.
I think that we've got a lot to be thankful for. So
you can pop that back up, actually, because I wanted to ask you a couple more things about that. Yeah.
Sure.
And yeah, for anybody that's just listening, we're looking at this psychology. What's it actually called? The psychology of a
market cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've probably, if you're listening to this, have seen this before. It's pretty commonplace, especially in crypto, just because people are usually dealing with the emotions a little bit more. And it's funny too, like I was thinking about this when you were talking, Ewok, is like, you can see on a calendar or something, or have the intelligence that like, oh, okay, so crypto cycles work like this. And, you're going to have like 85% drawdowns and stuff, but wait, what the ultimate end game might look like and how positive it could be. And you can think about that intellectually, but when you're actually in the throes of the bear market and you are still a human, and whenever you're letting those things get to you, it can be very difficult. So I agree with you. You have to definitely, more now than ever, really surround yourself with the best people that you can in your life. And we've beat this drum a lot too, for good reason. And you need to be working on something else at this point. If you can't just be looking at the markets every day. That may work a little bit when we're in a bull trend if you're a hodler, because then you can look into like, okay, I'm going to take profits here, and then when we get a dip, I'm going to put it back in here. If you're listening to this, you probably aren't shorting this market, because this is more of an investment-focused podcast. We're not talking about, short-term and, trading and stuff like that. But yeah, it can be okay to, for lack of a better term, sit on your hands a little bit in a bull market, because there might be more action for you. But right now, there's not a lot, other than maybe if you're just DCAing or something like that. So it's good to be working on something else. Are you able to zoom this in at all? Because I for one, have a full screen and I can't see it too well, and I just wonder if other people can. But I wanted to. There you go. That was a little bit, but it was still good. Yeah, it's not bad.
About as big as I can get it.
That's okay. So you are alluding to this before we went on the air, but where do you think we are specifically right now? Like, and you mentioned it, like anger has definitely been there. Anger has been there for months now. Not only in like little ecosystems, but just, I think on the whole in crypto, we have had that. But where do you think we are right now?
I think can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
I think we're right in here. I think we're a little bit past the anger stage. I think this last pump may have been this. I didn't think it would go too far. There were comments. I think you might have mentioned going to like 24, 25K Bitcoin. I thought that was a little much. I didn't think it would go that high. And I think we're probably starting to come back down. So I think we've got this yet to go. As far as time goes, I don't know how long that'll take to get there. But right here being your actual bottom could play out. I think we're right in here somewhere.
I think you're right. Yeah. And Ewok's basically referring to, so you've got the anger phase. This chart happens to show like a little bounce up after that, which we could have been in the middle of over this last week. Heck, we could even be in it the next couple of weeks. I mean, you could even get that. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're quite to that depression. I mean, people are certainly depressed, but yeah, I think it has been more angry has been the sentiment. There hasn't really been, like, you're not getting many crypto people, even if they're the fly-by-night type ones, saying that this is the end of crypto. You know what I mean? It's more like there's still, and this is also because of the fact that we're in, like the 14th year of Bitcoin now at this point. But like, there's still a lot of people out there that are like, this is the way it works. There's no reason to panic. so you have more voices of reason now than ever, which I think
Yep.
is because of the how long the market's been around, even though it's not been long, but also I don't know what my other point really was there. Like just the fact that you see more of that, and it makes me wonder, like, is it just because the market has been around as long as it has now, or are those people just wrong, or with denial, or what do you think that is? Because I am seeing more of that now.
Well, yeah, I think there's more people that have been here before. Will that affect it though? It's kind of weird how this all plays out. There were so many people that were calling for the bottom, and we talked about this before too. That excuse me, when things like that happen, you tend to go the contrarian route and go against them. But because we are having a lot more experience in the markets, things like that, you start to get to realize that some people know what they're talking about. And I've often wondered, will that change the outcome? People knowing that, people
Right.
playing it, or are there still enough newbies in that will affect it to go down even further? It's all going to be a wait and see kind of thing, I guess.
That is an interesting take. Yeah, like I said, just that we do have so many people that have been through the market before, and could that, we've also talked about the fact that you kind of had that double top with Bitcoin in the bull market last year, and could we just be looking at kind of a double bottom thing, and maybe it doesn't dip quite as low as we feel? And these are all reasons, because we don't know the answer to this. These are all reasons that setting limit orders or having a DCA plan of some type is important, because if you are somebody, and I was suffering from this back in the summer, I was suffering from the I want to time the exact bottom, and I'm going to save up all this dry powder, and I'm just going to nail it. And you just realize, like, that sounds all well and good, but it's like the Mike Tyson thing. Like, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And it's like
Right.
in June, I remember specifically, I will probably never forget. I remember the day in June specifically, whenever everything was burning down. I think Terra Luna had already happened, but then we were on to like all the scam platforms, falling too. And I remember ETH. I mean, there was a whole day that you could have bought $850 to $900 ETH. I remember
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
and I didn't pull the trigger because I was of everybody at that time. Oh, we're going to $600 ETH, and that's what's coming and everything. And I'm not beating myself up over it, but I didn't pull the trigger, and it seems so ridiculous now. Like right
Right.
now, obviously in hindsight, it's like, what were you? I mean, there was like giant red candles. What were you doing? But like the sky was just falling at that time, so it was so much harder to pull the trigger. I think
Yeah.
that just sharing my own experience. That's what happened to me at the time. Now, it didn't cause me to FOMO. I didn't do anything dumb on the pumps or anything. I just kind of casually started to DCO over the course of the rest of the summer, and now here in the fall, and we may even have another better opportunity ahead. But
Yeah.
I don't.
And I think we do.
Yeah,
I think we do.
yeah. We'll talk about that, because you've probably faced that in the past yourself, being through two big time bear cycles as well. Like that idea that you want to buy like the nut bottom, and you want to make sure that you're in on the ground floor and everything, and just how that is really a figment of your imagination, not something you can necessarily do, and how to combat that, because it does create FOMO. Having that feeling of perfection does create FOMO, because the minute that ETH, as I'm using in this example from June, bounces off that $900 and is back up over 1,000 again, you're like, oh shit. Now, okay, I thought I was going to get almost $500 ETH. We're like a 2x off that now. And then, then
Yeah.
you don't know what to do. So talk about
Well,
anything you can remember you going through with
I
that.
took a beating the first bear market that I, went through. I didn't sell at the top, obviously. Lost a lot of money on other platforms that I, should have probably not been in. And then, yeah, BitConnect, and several others. There was a ton of things out there that were paying, that type of return. But
Mhm.
learned a lesson, being that those were all platform based, middlemen central. There was an off switch that could just go away. So you learn a lot of lessons about why Hex is special and what the differences are, of that stuff compared to what we have now with true DeFi. And I remember the top, which was, I think it was December 18th, 19th, something like that. And then all of January just started to go down, and then we would see these little pullbacks and the suckers rallies and things like that. And that lasted almost all of 2018. It didn't really bottom out until late 2018. And then it pissed around the first several months of the year before things started to trickle back up. So at that point, I was pretty complacent. I was bored, and just kind of took one on the chin, and kind of frustrated with it. But, I still watched, I still paid attention. I just didn't do a lot of movement. I didn't buy a lot of things. I didn't, I was being extremely, I guess, guarded at that point. I was overly cautious, probably. Just not knowing what to do and how it worked out, because I would see these pumps and I would think, oh well, now's the time. I should have, I was doing the trading bots as well, thinking, all right, well, I'm not smart enough to do this, let's let the computer bot do it for me. And that didn't work out either. When prices are going down, trading bots don't often make the best moves either. Those are set to scalp a lot of things based on up and down. As it goes up and down, it'll sell here, it'll buy here, it'll sell here, it'll buy here. And but when you're going in one direction or another, actually this way or this way, it doesn't work out that way usually. So I did I did grow my portfolio coin wise. However, value wise, it was still going down. So everything was still going down. But as it turned around, I realized that the things that I had done did profit me some money, while I increased the number of things, even though the value of them was going down. That was a smart play to do it slowly over the course of, buying in incrementally as things would go down. So, you did learn that lesson. I learned that lesson. And now that I know more about the cycles, I'm rather content to just sit around and wait for it to get to a much lower price and then start dollar costing in at some of those lower levels. So
right. Yeah, and that's a really good perspective to have. I don't think you can really recreate that, like
No.
without being through that exact experience.
Yeah.
I don't know how a long-term investor in crypto could really recreate that. And for anybody who wasn't really around at the end of 2017 to see that crazy, you would have talked about a blow off top in December of 2017, like what you just referenced. That's really what that was. It's really hard to put into words how insane that was. I mean, you probably remember better than me, but I do vividly remember because we were in close proximity at the time. Like I felt like it was a few days that we went from, maybe I'm just not remembering it right, but like around 10K or maybe even, but like a 2X in a matter of days, which I guess somewhat similar things have happened. But I mean, at that time for Bitcoin, it was very strange. Is that what it was? I feel like it was only a couple of days. You pulling something up here? Okay.
I want to take a look at it, and we'll go back to.
So we're looking at the BTC chart here for the podcast listeners from December of 2017.
We'll go to the weekly chart, and it'll give us a pretty good idea of how these weeks looked. And you've got December 4th, the week of December 4th, as it really rose up, and here's the week of the 11th, and then boom, it went from almost 20K on this chart. It was close to 20K. Within a week, it was all the way down to 10.
Wow.
That candle, I mean, it closed at 14, but that was a 50% drop all within a week.
And there really had never been any support up there. I mean, there's never been in that region before.
No.
So it did kind of make sense. What goes up must come down.
And I think a lot of that did have to do with the platforms like the BitConnects and the other ones that were, because what they entailed was you buy Bitcoin, you put it on their site, you change it into their coin. So it was a lot of um, the buy pressure that just kept it going up, and then it just couldn't sustain it. And then boom, it fell, like I said, 50% within a week, and then just
It's really
started to trickle.
It's really interesting for people to take heed here too if you stay on that. I mean, we had this kind of like slow stair step down. It looks like once every few weeks
Well, these
to
are
months,
weekly
basically.
weekly candles.
Just the main stair step down trend there. And you can see really how, I mean, then there was a long crawl around 6K and everybody just figured that was going to be
Mhm.
where it was. And then you just see this
Boom.
giant red,
Yep.
the bottom falls out at
Yeah,
the
and I
end.
feel like we're kind of for this cycle, I feel like we're in here somewhere. I mean,
Mhm.
if we can look at the chart, here we go again.
Yeah, there's
It's
that stair
chopping
step.
around. We're
Yeah,
due for that boom, that drop down into here.
right.
And, if you measure it, that's pretty close to.
It's similar. Yeah, it is definitely similar. Yeah, because we've already had a couple of those stair step downs, and
Yeah.
yeah, we haven't had those giant red candles here since back in, well, that was obviously May, June. Yeah, I could see it happening. It would reflect very similar to what we saw at the end of 2018.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, we're playing around here. You get the pump, comes back down, and then it chops for a little while, and then the bottom falls out.
mhm.
So, and obviously cycles don't always repeat, but they usually rhyme. They're pretty close, and you start to see very similar structures. You know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've been at the same mindset for a long time that we do think a lower low is coming. So we shall see. It doesn't mean that you probably shouldn't be, if you're not in the market at all right now and you want to get in it, I definitely would be getting into it slowly. But kind of rounding off on the FOMC update and the Fed and Jerome Powell today, he was basically quoted specifically as saying that there is a need for ongoing rate increases. So the 75 basis points was again somewhat, I think, baked into the market. But what wasn't as much baked in is the level of hawkishness he had, just being interviewed afterwards. So it's and what does that really mean? That we need more rate increases? Well, they've already said that. So on one hand, I'm kind of like, well, you already speculated that the overall increase would be around 5% or so, or something like that. But I mean, we like we alluded to earlier, we don't have another meeting until like February the 1st of 2023. So that leaves us in this region for a very long time without any kind of macro in the terms of US economic policy necessarily changing. We have the midterms coming up here in less than a week, which we've talked about Tuesday, November the 8th,
Yep.
which is going to be interesting. I think that'll certainly have some kind of effect on the market. But I tell you what, Ewok, I still stand with where we've been. We have such a long gap now between the next FOMC meeting and to have another 75-point hike today. I think we could see the effects of this really start to rear their ugly heads over the next couple of months. And I don't know. I still, that nothing has really happened for me to not still believe in what we already have been believing. And that's that we could see new lows. We've been saying like the second half of November to Thanksgiving, or maybe the whole way into Christmas or something like that. And maybe I'm just full of it. I mean, maybe it could not be until January, but yeah, it makes sense to me that over the course of these next 3 months, we should see it. And,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree. I think, like I said, that those patterns will definitely repeat themselves pretty close, and we could be definitely due for a chop and then a drop.
Yeah. Yeah. We will have our eyes peeled, obviously, and constantly be talking about it because that's all we've really been able to do. It's just all hinging on
Yeah.
some of the Fed policy. But do you think I alluded to the midterms a moment ago, and finally we're going to stop seeing the ads here if you're in the United States for all these stupid elections. But we talked about it a bit last week. most people overwhelmingly that are not delusional do believe that the Republicans will now gain at least, I believe, the House, if not the House and the Senate. I don't think both are a lock, but at least one of them is. And generally, for people that like good economic policy, they would look at that as a good thing or a better thing anyway, certainly. But what do you think, assuming that happens, the most probable outcome here with the Republicans at least taking one of them, if not both? What do you think that means short term for the market? And we've also talked about that the federal government and everything could get a little bit more loose lipped with how they define a recession and et cetera after the election when there's not as much to gain short term.
Well, you got to remember that the Fed is not Republican or Democrat. They're
Right.
not even a voted position, which still baffles me.
Right.
To think that these people are just placed into these positions that can control that much of the world's economy. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
kind of it's it's a crazy thought. But I do think, I do think we'll see a Republican victory for a lot of upsets. Maybe they're not considered upsets, but I think Democrats will be slowly replaced by some Republicans. People are just tired of the same old stuff,
Hmm.
and like I said, it always starts locally. As you work your way up, if you want to make change, you've got to do it at the lower levels, and I think this will be step one of hopefully trying to get some bad intent out of there.
Yeah.
It almost feels like this is I hate to say it, but sabotage. Are we sabotaging ourselves here? Because it almost feels like it. Some of the choices and decisions that have been made in the past 2 years, that it just I shake my head. I'm like, what are we
Yeah.
doing to ourselves? There's so many things that could have been taken care of differently, so that we don't have these food shortages and high gas prices and um, the cost of lumber. There's just so many things. COVID obviously played a big part in that, but how that was handled,
Certainly. Yeah.
the shutdowns and the just it goes on and on and on. I don't want to. Well, we don't have that many viewers to get in trouble talking about it, but you
Well,
know,
I heard a guest that was on one of my favorite podcasts is the James Altucher show. He's a really good long time investor, has a lot of businesses and stuff like that. But he had a guest on today that I forget his name, but he is very well versed on a lot of these elections and was talking about in any of the states where it is a toss up or basically any states where they were really, really locked down heavily or excessive on lockdowns. Michigan comes to mind. They were one of the most strangely stringent ones out there, and obviously California. But those are the ones where there's this like red revenge out there. Or I shouldn't even say that, just normal people that are upset by the insane policy during the lockdown. But what's
yeah,
the
we have a.
comment we have from? Yeah, go ahead.
He says, "Let's get free TV." He says, "We called it just digging into a deeper recession. We're going to see a crypto market that's never been seen before, in my own opinion." So,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think, like I said, we go back to the thought of this is the first bear market that we've seen, with a more of a global recession happening. It's going to be different. How
Mhm.
different, we don't know, and we can only speculate. But I think, when Richard Hart says 11K and pray, the pray part means he thinks it could go even lower.
Right. Yeah.
It's a hold on for dear life type thing, and we'll see where it ends up. But I still think there's going to be another major event that causes this last, trickle down. We don't know what it is. The Mount Gox coins, haven't heard anything about those. We
No
speculated
idea.
on those 140,000 coins plus being dumped on the market. You've got um, the Ross Ulbricht coins that are out there that, who knows what will happen with them. You've got what is it? Well, there's a lot of things. So, who knows what'll play out and how. Maybe China will throw another regulation in on something that surprises us,
Right.
that creates FUD across the markets too. So it's just one of those. It's just one of those. We're gonna have to wait and see, but we are gonna see more pain for sure.
Yep, I do agree with you. But to get away from the deep dark depression of this continuing bear market, let's leave people with a little bit of hope, hopefully, over these last few minutes anyway. And well, maybe not actually. I was going to ask you about like updates potentially with PulseChain and what's going on, as you mentioned, in the Richard Hart ecosystem. It's been interesting just to talk a little bit about quickly some coins that have pumped and dumped here over the last couple of days. Hex, namely, is one that, once again, we talked about it last week. It started to front run the market and pump big time. And I'm not talking about like just one of these little mini bear market pumps. I mean, we saw it pump from, it was in the 3 to 3.5 cent range for such a long time. And it touched 5 cents at some point last week. Now we've retraced most of that, but not all. It did go just below 4 cents again, by a tick earlier today. I saw.
Yeah,
I think we're right there right now.
Yeah, we're right there right now. No, this is the Uniswap V2
The
chart.
3-day, I think. Yeah.
This is the 1-day chart, but you're right. It did top out like 5 cents on the nose on this candle here, and we've kind of trickled back down right around 3. It says 3.9 cents. It's been playing in that 3.94 cent range for a little bit today. This candle hasn't gone far in one direction or another. Oh wait, it's a brand new candle. Sorry, it turned.
Oh yeah, that's
at 8 o'clock. Yeah. Started a new candle. So yeah, this was the candle. So it ranged anywhere from 4.4 down to 3.9 cents. So a half a cent in either direction isn't too awful bad, but not much volume going on here either.
Definitely a good time to get buy orders in for Hex if you are still getting into it. I mean, we both speculated that the bottom could be in with Hex, and it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not calling it definitively or anything like that, obviously, but to call it about 2.8 cents or whatever it did get to at its ultimate lows, which was more of a wick type situation, I could certainly see it being in and, just not go below 3.5 cents ever again in its history, possibly. So, it very well could be. And, we talk about Hex decorrelating a little bit from the rest of the crypto market. And I do wonder if this recent huge pump up, which again, it's retraced, but that's just natural. It hasn't retraced the whole way or anything. I do wonder, could it be a sign of things to come for the rest of the market? And maybe we do have that short-term bullish price action also coming off of this FOMC news that most people expected. And, once again, I know we're back in the same stupid conversation I wanted to get out of a minute ago, but could that be a scenario?
Well, let's change the scenario a little bit, with Hex especially. What if PulseChain does get a version 3 here, testnet, in the next couple of days? That's bullish as hell. And I think that could continue the decoupling, and we could definitely see it pump because of that. I mean, super bullish news. You've got a pretty substantial sized community that would be pretty damn pumped up about that. I could see a lot of dry powder on the side going in, knowing that we're close, because guess what? You're going to get that free copy. So I think that could be super bullish. I think that could also, play a big part in, like we said, the decoupling away from the rest of the markets. And once the rest of crypto sees that, hey, these guys are pumping and we're going down, it could also add another, substantial amount of new customers that come in and say, yeah, we know what's happening here. Let's kind of jump on board and see how it goes this cycle. Hopefully the gatekeeping slows down a little bit for us, and it takes a while for that to happen. So I think this is a good start, but I do think I think we're getting close. We've got to be getting close, but then again, been saying that for how long now?
Let me ask you this, because you just talked about if there, which supposedly soon there will be a version 3 of the test net for PulseChain, and it's already been confirmed that there is going to be a version 3.
Yep.
But let me ask you about these two scenarios. One is more mild than the other, but again, we want to have a little bit of fun as we send this thing off the air here tonight and not be so depressing. But let's do say that the V3 date is announced or whatever. How bullish do you think that would be? What do you think we would see in terms of percentage moves and how high Hex could get in the short term, just based off of just a simple test net?
I think the news alone of that, and if there was a date or or a time frame announced, we could easily get to 10 cents pretty quickly. There is not. I don't think there's a whole lot of. Whoops. Where are we at here with this? So on V2, there's only 10 million hex for sale. So it doesn't take much to pump the price, and that's just one market, obviously, just one exchange and its liquidity. I know there's a little bit less. There's probably 50 or 60 million on V3. But again, several $100,000 to $1 million can easily raise the price 5-6 cents pretty quickly. It wouldn't take a whole lot, I don't think. So, yeah, I mean, we could top out knowing that, and then it would play into that if things were going well and there didn't seem to be any issues. I think we could hit 15-20 cents pretty easily before PulseChain launch. Now, then you get into the whole discussion of, well, what will it be? How quickly do you think it will gain parity once PulseChain launches from there? Could be interesting. We'll see how the liquidity is done on that side and how tightly knit they kind of move together. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a neat experiment to see and watch how the coin prices from the ETH hex to the Pulse hex, how they move together, and if they achieve parity. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, I think.
I am dying for it to happen. I mean, I've been patient, but could you just, not even just that, but like just really anything to happen in this bear market to make things interesting? But that would be, talk about a distraction. I mean, like I'd forget about the rest of the market almost entirely for a while if that really began to happen. Like if we started to get concrete news, it'd be so fun to be paying attention to that for a while. And that was going to bring me to my other question. I know it isn't coming around the corner or anything, but if and when, not if, when PulseChain is announced, actually, okay. Now, we don't know what that window would be. I know you've speculated it might be more like a 1 or 2 day type thing, not a weeks long thing.
You mean heads up wise?
Yes, yeah, when we'd have notice,
yeah. I think there'll be a block window, a block height, a certain number that they'll base it on, and we'll probably get 24 to 48 hours heads up.
Okay. When that happens, now that doesn't leave a lot of time for Hex price to pump, but that was my question, is what kind of percentage pump or to what amount do you think we'd go to when PulseChain's officially announced? Because my God, I mean, the anticipation from so many people, what do you think we'd see?
Well, like I said, I think the announcement of V3 could send us from this 4 cent range up to 10 to 15. And then that extra announcement of this is the block height, I think you'll see it. We could get up to a quarter. We've been there before, so it's nothing new. It's not like we're breaking all-time highs or anything like that. I just think the positive sentiment of it would definitely push it. Now, how many people will dump their coins in favor of, well, I'm going to dump them over here in order to buy them on Pulse at a much cheaper rate? How many people are going to play that game? Which, man, I hope they don't.
People are definitely going
to. But they're going to. There's degenerate people everywhere that will just not be content with taking the free copy and letting it play out the way it should. it's going to be interesting. We'll see. But I think one candle could easily send it several cents. It doesn't
I
take
think so.
much. We've seen it before when the God Whale bought it. It went, one purchase, $1 million would do wonders for our chart right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're dead on. Yeah, I think I can't wait for something really tangible to happen because I think it's just going to have such a huge impact. And
yeah.
I mean, at this point, how much do you think there is still like really important work for security that's happening for the Pulse chain versus Richard wanting it to be, just steadfastly believing that there's going to be new lows
Well,
and really wanting to time it?
yeah, I think he definitely wants to time it, but he also knows that the longer you delay it, the longer the bad juju of people, and the more people talk scam, scam, scam.
Right.
I know he wants to get it launched. As far as is he are they really developing, or are they actually trying to time it? I would say it's still not done yet. Again, I think they want to make some changes so that it's just not a clone of Ethereum. They want to have some of their own features. There is the coin burn, so it's deflationary, which does not happen in Ethereum. So they've got to get that right. There's the other aspect of trying to speed up the blocks a little bit, to play with those numbers. It's not going to be much, probably a second or two, maybe we'll get extra. But that way you can say we burn more of the fees. Our block size is faster, and he can still stand by some of those things that he said earlier. So, and you got to get your validator set right as well. So
Well,
since that has all changed.
Let me mention this. I don't know if you have Richard Hart tweet notifications on, but just 13 minutes ago, as we've been talking, he literally just tweeted out PulseChain update. A and B teams are competing to release first, which I think we've already kind of known. Development is going fine. PulseX has been fine for a long time.
Yep.
That is the tweet. So
yep, we did know they were competing. He's
right.
got group 1, group 2 going. I didn't get I didn't see that tweet, or my phone is obviously muted while we're streaming, but
And you call yourself a Richard Hart maxi, but
well,
not even paying attention to the guy's tweets.
I know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, people are reacting to it quickly here. But yeah, I think we've known the A and B thing. I think more than anything, people, and I would include myself in this, I'm kind of happy that he even tweeted this.
Yeah,
because he just hasn't really been talking too much about
well, people need news. They want to hear something, and that's one of the complaints that I have heard was Richard doesn't even give us updates anymore. He used to stream at least 2 or 3 times a month. We would get a 4-hour live stream, but as we do it once a week, right? And you run out of things to talk to other than we just sit here and talk about the same old shit. He doesn't want to do that.
Well, not only that, but how many times, the meme of Hex of 4 more weeks and everything. He doesn't want to go through all that garbage again. And it's like, if there's nothing to say nothing, you know?
And we're not going to get a date. I mean, he's flat out said that. I'm not giving you guys another date because of the way it was handled the last time when we didn't meet our deadline. And he said, I essentially got crucified over it because, because stuff is hard and we didn't get it out in time. Why that happened, right? The one main developer went on vacation. Another developer had said, oh yeah, we're close, this will be about done, and then the guy got back from vacation. He said, we're not even close, there's too many bugs. So that was what happened to cause the first update to be so incredibly wrong. Was the main developer went on vacation. So
wow. You know what this phenomenon is really starting to remind me of, and you'll find this amusing because, as you know, my favorite band of all time is the rock band, progressive rock band Tool. And they had a 13-year gap between their last two albums. And, Tool fans are a serious bunch. It's somewhat cultish. And, 13 years between two albums was crazy. And Maynard, the vocalist, every now and then would they never want to provide any kind of updates, and people were so pissed off. I mean, imagine, Pulse is one thing. It's been what, a year now or whatever, but 13 years of people waiting for something. And every now and then Maynard would just tweet like a little nugget like this, and it would get, people would just go insane. And this is reminding me of that so much. It's given me a little bit of PTSD from those times.
Yeah.
Now the album's officially out, thank God, for the last few years. But yeah, it's reminded me of that a little bit. People are so starved for this. And I like seeing this. I mean, I know that he didn't tweet anything revolutionary necessarily, but just the fact that he gave a small update,
he gave
people
are
really reacting.
Yep. Miguel, Dollar Cost Crypto gave a nice analogy. I'm sure you probably heard it the other day. I forget when he even said it, but he said that, if you look at this like a VC investment, most of those, you get the early seed round investor. The software's not done, so you're probably waiting a year or so. And then once it does launch, your coins are usually locked up for another year before you can even touch them.
Right.
So he's like, that's been my mentality all along. And then once it does launch, then you still want to hold it if you want to make profits. You can't just dump it right away. That's a terrible decision. If you have faith in it, why invest in the first place? So you want to see the investment play out to fruition. He said, you're looking at a 3-year timetable before you can even take any kind of profits on it. So that's the way he's been viewing it. Now, I understand people did invest way more than they probably should have, or sacrificed more than they should have into this, and for the wrong reasons, because they wanted to make a quick flip. But
right.
But anyway, what I was saying is, if you go with his views on it, it makes a lot more sense as an investor type person to let it play out and give it that time frame. Knowing that going in would have been probably way more helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If a lot of people spoke up and said, "Hey, don't expect to get anything for 3 years."
Yeah, but you're dead on, and Miguel is dead on with that. You should be looking at it like a VC investment. Like, I know you did. I know I did. I know anybody sensible I know that did sacrifice for Pulse looked at it just like, I may never see this again. And that is how you should have looked at it. And if you didn't look at it that way and you aped in as if you were like buying a coin on the market right now, I think you just did it wrong. You should not have done that. It's, and I'm not even saying this hindsight, 2020. I would have said this back during the sacrifice phases. You should be looking at it. I had to convince myself to put in even a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like, I was more arguing with myself, like, maybe I went too short. You know what I mean? Whereas other people like couldn't put in enough. Yeah. And I don't think that was the way to look at that. You should have looked. I think Miguel is just dead on. I think you should have looked at it like a VC opportunity.
Yeah, and I probably myself, I had some friends also invest that I had spread the word and talked to. They made the investment too, and every time they asked me for an update, I'm like, still nothing. I said, but don't worry, it's coming. Just be patient. These things take time, and it'll all work out for the best here down the road. So that's all you can really say.
Right. And in the meantime, just, protect that wallet, protect that seed phrase. Don't forget about it. And get ready to get your coins if we get them eventually. So
when we get them.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we carried a lot more than we thought we would there. I enjoy leaving off with some nice speculation talk and some positive vibes. It's interesting that Richard put out that tweet.
Right, he knew we were streaming. He had to give us something to end on a good note,
It's clearly what he was doing. I agree with you, and I'll thank him here. Well, I don't think I can respond to his tweets, but maybe you can.
Yeah. I can.
So yeah, interesting stuff. We got the 75-point hike. We think we're going to see new lows here over the next few weeks or months. We're not going to see any economic stuff until February the 1st of 2023. A lot is going to happen between now and then, though, otherwise, in this market, I believe, even though we haven't had a lot happening. But we will be here all along the way, every single Wednesday with you. Ewok, is there anything else you want to leave the viewers and or listeners with this evening?
No, man, I'll just touch on one of the things I said earlier. I know it can get depressing. Be positive, be thankful. We're almost there. Hang tight.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually. And the one of the things that I did forget to mention is probably the biggest thing that I did learn during that whole bear downturn was patience. You just have to have patience, and without that, it does get a little stressful. So, like I said, hang in there, remain thankful, and be positive as you can. Get outside, read some good books. There's a lot of books about that type of thing, and just hang in there. We're almost there.
A big thing for me has always been trying to practice stoicism and things like that as well, which I think, especially for guys, is a really important thing to look into, because we do have kind of an anger tendency as men, and though people would rather not have you believe it, there is a huge problem with depression and people kind of taking the early exit in terms men, more so men these days. And yeah, I think it's really important to not neglect those feelings and whatever it is for you. Like, everybody's different. You just express your ways. I've always been somebody who's been into audio journaling and going for walks and stuff. And, it's a big thing. Like, it's not necessarily going to completely give you a mental shift and you're going to feel on cloud nine after it. But a practice that I get into, I think I said this in one of my recent videos too on the Boi Crypto YouTube channel, is really taking note that if I go for a walk and journal for a little bit, even if I only feel like nominally better, realizing that change, even if it's just a little bit, because, man, it's valuable for anybody who's ever been in therapy or anything. I have felt like downright euphoric in therapy sessions before when I got done, just because like you get your feelings validated. They're all up in your head and they're all gray and you can't sort them out. And it's just you on this continuous, crappy feedback loop, and you have to get them out there. And I know, like, even you and I, in some of our fireside chats, it's good to do that because, in crypto, you're not going to have a lot of other like real life, like-minded people
around. They're hard to find.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's important to have that. So.
Yeah. And setting very small goals are actually a bigger goal, but breaking it down into smaller increments, you'll be surprised how quickly you get to that goal when you break it down into smaller, easier manageable tasks and just keep going. If you stay consistent with it, you hit those small goals over and over and over. And next thing you know, you're at your major goal, and it was a piece of cake. So those small goals are super important to to your livelihood as well, and staying positive. So
100% right. Yeah. What's that phrase? People underrate what they can do. I'm going to butcher it, but within a shorter amount of time, or overrate what they can do in a short amount of time, but underrate what they can do in a little bit longer of a period of time. Like 5 years is insane what you can accomplish in this world right now.
Oh, yeah.
So. But all right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for us. We appreciate everybody for listening. Ewok, tell them where they can find you.
Crypto Ewok, Twitter, YouTube, just about everywhere that you can find me. I'll be there.
Yep. And I am at Broke Boi, Boi Crypto, on YouTube and Twitter. I'm going to have some more very sweet videos here coming out soon. I have actually stuff scheduled out most of this month. So it's going to be a lot of interesting stuff coming down the pike. But we do appreciate everybody listening and watching this evening.
Yeah, give us a like and a follow, and
absolutely
post a couple comments.
Yeah, sub to the podcast on your preferred platform. We appreciate you guys listening. Sub to the channel as well. We very much appreciate it. And we will catch you next Wednesday right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast.